When you don't have 20 minutes to watch a full review, when you're not looking for a how to play or an hour-long playthrough, and let's be honest, when the wallets are a little smaller too, that's why we have 6 small box games for you. Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co, and today we are reviewing 6 button shy games. We're going to be going through 3 on a little older side, 3 on a little newer. We'll go through the older ones first, that way you have to sit through the entire video to get to the interesting ones. Or you can just use the timestamps. They are there for a reason. Let's go ahead and go through these. We're going to start off with Antimony. Of course, timestamps everything down below. But let's start with Antimony. Antimony is a game which you're basically going through a magical duel. The basic idea of the game, and I'll set up as much as I need to illustrate the game, but you're going to go ahead. Well, no, these are the expansion stuff. We're not going to cover the expansion in most of these. We're going to go ahead and be putting these down on the table, creating a row of 9 cards effectively to go through. Yes, it is on a slant. Setting this up quickly means there's a cost and a trade-off for it. We're going to have various scepters of the 2 sides on both sides, and effectively the players are trying to create sequences. They're called, oh my gosh, they're called there's a thing, you're creating a thing, let's see if you can call it creating paradox. You're getting a paradox over here. And this again is not fully set up, but the basic idea is you're going to have a hand of 3 cards over here. These are expansion cards, let's not use those. You have a hand of 3 cards, and then you can use your cards over here to go ahead and say, I'm going to go ahead and play this card, and I'm going to move my scepter forward 1, 2, 3. Okay, that's one option. You can move forward the number, and everyone's forward is different. Whatever your scepter points, that's forward. So I can move forward 1, 2, 3. Or I can move backwards to either the shape or the color, the icon or the color. So for example, I can go backwards here. Okay, so I can either go forward 1, 2, 3, or go backwards the color or the icon. Now, why are you doing this? You're doing this to create a paradox. You want to create a paradox in which, and I have to give you another card because setup matters over here, you're going to try to create a paradox in which you're trying to create a sequence of 3 cards that are the same. Either 3 of the same number, 3 of the same color, or 3 of the same icon. And to that end, looking at my hand over here, can I even create a paradox right now? That's always going to be an interesting question. If I go 1, 2, 3, so there's no, I have a skull here. If I could move a skull forward, I don't think I can do it right now. I don't think I can create a paradox right now. I don't have any 2s, and there's no line of 2s I can utilize, so I don't think I can, but for illustration purposes, let's pretend I was over here. So if I were over here, I could play this and go 1, 2, 3, then swap my card that I played out, and there you go. I now have 3 skulls. I've created a paradox. Now, there are a few more rules, but first of all, 5 paradox wins you the game. There's also clashes where you can go ahead and go next to your opponent. You go adjacent to them and you reveal your hand, and whoever has the highest total wins, stealing a gem from your opponent. And lastly is going to be a card on the end with a little tracker that tells you which color is not eligible for paradoxes this round. So for example, if blue wasn't eligible for paradoxes, and it's going to rotate around these icons over here, but if blue wasn't eligible for paradoxes, then this would not be an eligible paradox because there's a blue card in it. When you create a paradox, you shuffle up some cards, rearrange some things, but that's the basic idea. You're playing cards to try to go ahead and move around the board in order to create 5 paradoxes or steal gems from your opponent, and whoever does so first is going to win the game. That is how you play Antimony. It's okay. It's okay. I find my biggest problem with Antimony isn't that it's a bad time, but as a game, I don't feel satisfied playing through it. The reason for that is because I find that most of the time, you're just looking at your hand of cards and just seeing whether you can or cannot create a paradox. Yes, there is the possibility to try to plan ahead, so there's an additional level of depth of, well, if I go ahead and create a paradox there, I'll get that card back in my hand, so this can create that, but your opponent's also playing things, and the board's being constantly moved around, and I would say overall, Antimony is not a bad game, but it didn't feel like a satisfying experience either. For me, this is a 2.5 out of 5. Not the worst time I've spent with a game, but I don't see a reason to pull this out and play it. Then we have Seasons of Rice over here. I will say, ironically, not planned. I'm rating these in order of age, but they also do go up in order of rating too. I'm pretty sure consistently they go up in order of rating, but I was ordering them by age, but spoiled that for you. Let's talk about Seasons of Rice. Season of Rice is going to be a terrain building game. You're going to have, and again, I won't take all the cards over here because it's not necessary, but you're going to start the game with 2 cards over here that you're given, and you're going to take a look at those cards because they're the ancestors on the back. You're going to take an ancestor and play that ancestor, and they're going to be tracking your score on both sides. Yes, you need to provide your own tokens. That's true of Antimony too, by the way. But then you also get an ability either during the game, end of game, final score, and you get some sort of ability that modifies something. So I'm just going to take this without looking too heavily at it, and the other one becomes my field. Now from there, you're going to get a hand of 7 cards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 cards, okay? I'm going to look at my 7 cards, and now I only care about the back of them. I will pick one of those cards, and I'll go ahead and add it to my field. Now, I'm not going to focus too much on why I'm doing things. I'm just going to do them, which honestly is not that different than real life, but whatever. I'm going to play this down over here. Great. I've now created a little field. I'm going to look at my ancestor card, and I'm going to score 1 point for that field I've created because it's a size 1 field. There's a little breakdown of what it is. I'd have to look at the rule book, but I'm pretty sure it's It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 scores. I want to say 1, 3, 5, 8, 11 in terms of the sizing of your fields. That's the basic idea. So the larger the field, the escalating the score. But you also score points for your farmers. And again, 1, 2, 3, 4 farmers will again score 1, 3, 5, 8 points, I want to say. Again, it's all in the rulebook, very easily accessible. And then these cattle over here will score 2 points if they're enclosed and -1 point at the end of the game if they are not enclosed. The other card goes to the middle, where it's going to be drafted by the players in the second round of play. The first round of play, you're going to start with your basic card, and you're going to add 4 cards to your field, because you have 7. You're drafting, you pick 2, and 1 goes to the center, 1 goes to your field. The last card goes into your field. That results in 4 cards being added to your initial 1 for a total of 5. In round 2, starting with the player who's currently losing, because you are tracking score as you go, the players will draft the remaining 6 cards in the field, add them to the field for a total of, I should do math, if we're currently at 5, 9, 8 cards in your field. Does that feel wrong? No, that feels right. 8 cards in your field by the end of the game. But as you can see over here, as we go on and create patterns, and there are certain rules, you cannot create an edge that goes nowhere, so I can't put this in a way that, you know, over here, for example, that would go in the middle of nowhere, so that can't be done. But you could do it if it bounces off. So for example, here, that's a completely legitimate placement, because, well, even honestly, even if it was like this in theory, well, ignore that. I'm giving you terrible examples. But if this, hypothetically, were like that over here, because it's bouncing off over here, it's fine. You just can't have an opposed edge. But you're basically trying to create a bunch of fields, a bunch of rules. You're looking at your scoring modifiers, and that's basically it. Let's go ahead and just create a few more cards so you can see what an actual field looks like by the time you're done, because that's so much more satisfying than this in-progress one that we're currently building. Let's go ahead and place this guy over here, like so. Let's go ahead and put this guy over. There's always a little bit of a challenge trying to make this all line up. That should work over here. There we go. Perfect. Okay, great. And then we're going to try to create, can we make this into a field? Maybe. No. I don't know. Sometimes you can get stuck depending on how you draft things together. I'm not going to spend too much time on this. There we go. There we go. There you see, we still managed to create and close some fields off, getting some more people in play. That's basically the idea. You're creating a field. You look at your scoring condition. There'll be small things like, oh, you know, cattle are worth an extra 2 points for you if you do X, Y, and Z, or houses will make your fields worth an additional +1 point for every additional field. All these things. Oh, I didn't even show you houses. Houses make your field +1. So a size 4 field with a house is really a size 5 field. That's the basic idea of Seasons of Rice. It is slightly more compelling than Antimony. I like what you're doing in Seasons of Rice. I like the variety of having a different ancestor, modify your ability, modify your play each time. But I'd say that ultimately my biggest problem is this type of game is very common. You know, tile laying games, building a terrain, it's a very common thing, and I just think they work much, much better when you have more than 18 cards. If you specifically want to play this type of game in a small box form, play Sprawlopolis. There are better games that do this in small box form, even from the same company. So my issue with Seasons of Rice, it is more enjoyable. It is. It's a 3 out of 5 for me. It is certainly more enjoyable. My biggest issue with it is I don't see a reason why I would pull it off the shelf and play that compared with any other game. There are better games that do this in big box form, and there are better games that do this in small box form. It's fine. I just don't get the satisfaction because of how few cards are being on my field. I mean, even if you take Sprawlopolis, one of the reasons Sprawlopolis is more satisfying is I have all the cards. So I'm putting, like, I don't know, what's the math in it? 3 cards are for that. So I'm playing 15 cards into my field, as opposed to here I'm playing 8. That's a much more rewarding city that you're building out. I think the amount of cards you have for the game means that while the gameplay is fine, the net end result is not as satisfying. So better gameplay, still a kind of lacking end result, 3 out of 5. Then we have Tussie Mussie from Elizabeth Hargrave over here. This one I will say is generally more well-liked. I still enjoy it, but it's still a little on the lower side for me over here. Well, low is relative. I'll save you some time right now. It's at 3.5. It's already better, moving up. We're fine. We got some interesting choices here. I would say that, well, let's go ahead and get into it. In Tussie Mussie over here, you're going to be creating little patterns of bouquets. The general idea is you're going to take a look at 2 cards. You're going to alternate. So I'm going to look at these 2 cards over here, and I'm going to go ahead and create an offering. So maybe I go ahead and I say, oh, this gives me a point for each of my hearts. This gives me a point for each different color card. Now, you're going to be creating this offer so the other person sees one card but not the other. So you want to think about what they might be tempted by based on the knowledge. So I'm going to go ahead and create this offer like so. Let's go ahead and do there. And now they often, because in this game, if they take the card that they don't know, they won't see it. And they have to operate around that hidden information. So often they are biased towards the card that they do know if it's tempting enough, which in this case, I think it is. So in this case, I create the offer, they look at the card, and they say, hey, they took the red rose. Boom. They go ahead and take a look at the cards, and they go ahead and present an offer. I'm not going to just do it whatever. I'll get this other card. I know what it is. They're going to create an offer. I'm just going to do it like this because I don't know the actual other card in this case. And now I have to choose, if I know that I'm getting a point for every different colored card, do I want this pink card or do I want the unknown? Before scoring, you may draw 2 cards. If you do, you must replace one of your cards with one of them. That's a good ability. I I'll take the pink card. Great, no problem, they get this. That's going to go back and forth until you have different cards of different orientations based on knowing whatever. You know, it's always going to be an equal amount of face up, face down, so in this case it'll be that. And then you go ahead and add them all up and score them. So for example, in this case over here, look at that, that's amazing. 1 point for each of your red hearts, 1 point for each of your different color cards. So that's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, so I have 4 points. Before scoring, you may draw 2 cards, so I'm going to go ahead and I'll just draw this card for the sake of whatever, because the rest are in the wallet. I'll go ahead and draw 2 cards, and I can replace one. 1 point for each of your red cards, including this one. So this is going to trade off. If I get another red card, these two don't work well together. Probably shouldn't have taken that as a face-up card, honestly. 1 point for each of your other cards without a heart. That's beautiful, honestly. Honestly, I think the current setup is as good as I can get. I don't need this one over here. If you do, you must replace one of your cards. Oh. Well, I guess I'll do this one over here. That actually works. There we go. Okay, great. So now I have 1, 2, 3, 4 because of this. I have 1 point for each pink. That brings me to 5. 1 point for each red. That brings me to 6. And 1 point for each of the other cards without a heart. That brings me 3 more points. That brings me to 9 points for my hand, which honestly is a pretty good score. Anyways, oh, and then hearts on a card are worth inherently 1 point as well, plus the text abilities. That's the idea. You go through 3 rounds of this, taking turns, creating offers. Basically, I pick, I cut, you choose, with a degree of face-down information, and that's Tussie Mussie from Elizabeth Hargrave over here. I like it. It's fun. I find that the overall puzzle is fun for like a few games. Again, this is one of those games that the nature of these button shy wallet games is that they're so easy to table that for me, Tussie Mussie isn't even a game I love. I enjoy it. I have fun with it. I don't know if I need to own it forever. I should rephrase that. I don't need to own it forever. But I've also played this like, I don't know, 9 or 10 times because it's so easy to just go through that process. So I do like it. I have had fun with it. But it's a little, the 18 cards gives you a small enough pool, and the decision space isn't necessarily as rewarding as some of the other button shy games. For me, it's a 3.5 out of 5. Definitely enjoy it, but also one that I don't think is going to be staying in my button shy collection. From there we have Super Slopes. Super Slopes is going to be one of the newer ones. At this point we shift to 3 more recent releases from Button Shy, and Super Slopes has you trying to, and this one's playable solo or co-op. In fact, that's true in general, but I think, however, there are some Seasons of Rice I don't know if it has a solo mode. Antimony I believe has a solo mode. I'm not sure. Maybe it's Convergence. I'm not sure exactly which has a solo mode. I know Tussie Mussie does not, I think. Anyways, this one over here has a solo mode or not. I believe it's designed by Scott Alms. Nope, it's designed by Ted Heideserf. My bad, Ted. I'm sorry for that. In the game, you're basically going to be creating an offer of cards, and you're going to be taking from that offer to be able to be creating certain loops and whatnot. And that's the general idea of the game. You're trying to create these little ski slopes, and each one's going to give you ways as far as you're going to pick a single slope. This is actually a nice little way that it converges over here. But all these symbols are going to matter for what you're doing. You also have these oriented differently. You're supposed to orient them based on the numbers over here. But effectively, you're trying to create an offer, and you're going to be selecting cards from the offer. And again, the solo mode has a way that the solo AI takes out other cards, versus alternatively, you're playing 2 players. You're just taking those cards. But you go ahead, you're taking these cards over here, and then you're trying to go ahead and create your own slope. So forgetting for a second the drafting system, you have things that will give you energy. You have things that will give you points. You have ways you're going to connect pathways. Going through force might cost points as you go through it. You have to orient them correctly. This is not the Seasons of Rice, where you can reverse orientation. Anyways, you're going to go ahead and pick your single slope that you think is the most rewarding, gathering the energy you need to go through the forest or whatnot, being mindful of these guys over here, these little yetis that will scare you on the pathway over here, collecting the various symbols and whatnot. So basically trying to create the perfect ski slope. That's a super slope. You're trying to score as many points as possible. You're also going to have abilities on the cards as well. But that's the basic idea. Trying to create a ski slope, trying to cash in, trying to build the most efficient, highest scoring ski slope. For me, this is simply a better version of Seasons of Rice. It still has the aspect where there's not enough cards for it to feel fully satisfying, at least for me. I find that I enjoy the process. I think this is a slightly more clever. I thought Seasons of Rice was a little bit more one-dimensional in terms of how you construct things. Versus in this one, I do find there's more interesting decisions as far as even just the complexity of trying to line things up. I think there's a fine line between the most obvious choice and then choices that are so convoluted you don't know what's going on. An example would be if I roll 2 dice and I say whoever picks the highest dice wins. That's not a decision. That's just right there in your face. The more complexity you add to a system, the more interesting decisions become. You add too much complexity and you can no longer see the impact of your decisions. I think this one falls into a nice space for that. Seasons of Rice, I think, is a little bit more obvious as far as the right choices. It's not perfect. It's not rolling a die and picking a number. Whereas this Super Slopes over here gives you more interesting decisions as far as how you can construct your slopes to try to get, even if you have the same 8 cards that I do, we might construct drastically different slopes, and that adds an element to it. I do enjoy it. It's a 3.5 out of 5. Again, the issue I do have with it is I do find there's not enough cards for me to feel as fully satisfied with the system I'm building. Once again, as much as I do enjoy this more than Seasons of Rice, I'm still going to pick Sprawlopolis or Agropolis or Naturopolis over this if I want that kind of system in a small wallet game. So 3.5 out of 5, definitely more the right direction, but still not necessarily as rewarding as other games. It's the number of cards. I want more depth and intricacy. If I'm going to be constructing a tile-laying game effectively, but with cards, I want as much depth as possible. This is a move in the right direction. I think Seasons of Ice, I don't know if I'd even actively recommend. It's a 3 out of 5. This one moves into that range where it's a 3.5, it's not the best game ever, but if you do have an opportunity to play it, I think it's a more rewarding game that does give you that interesting decisions. It's just that I recommend other games over it. Moving up, we have Convergence, and this one's going to be a split rating based on the multiplayer versus the solo play. But Convergence is going to have you creating, this is an interesting one. So Convergence is going to have you, let's see, what do I even have over here? These are more cards. Okay, so you're basically trying to create your factions in this game. So you're going to go ahead and create a rule in the center. And I'm going to orient this for you over here. But this is the rule, the highest sum of ranks. But then I'm going to have a hand of 3 cards. My opponent's going to have a hand of 3 cards. And let's say they have the artifact, okay? So the artifact is going to be in play. And the goal of the game is to win while you have the artifact. That's the goal. Well, technically you win twice while you have the artifact, but neither here nor there. The reason for that is because when you have the artifact, you play first. And when you play first, you are at a disadvantage. So the sequence of play is that you're going to play a card while you have the artifact, then your opponent plays a card, whoever is currently winning, well, it depends what happens. If the person who's winning is the person without the artifact, they get the artifact now. It's theirs. Whereas if the person who has the artifact now wins, they simply win the round, they get a point, first to 2 points wins. The reason for that disparity is because playing first is a huge disadvantage. So when you have the artifact, you play first, and if you're strong enough that you could win while playing first, then you win the point. Now, what are you trying to win? Well, you're trying to win whatever the current goal is, because when you have a card in your hand, you can do 3 things with it. Let's go ahead and say that my opponent looks at their hand, they want the highest sum of ranks, so they're going to go ahead and play this 4 over here, because honestly, that's not even that great, honestly. So let's go ahead and see if they can do something here. We can move the top discarded goal, we can move 1 goal card. They're going to discard this because they're not confident. Right now, they only have a 4 and the numbers go to 6. They're not confident that they can actually beat me if we go with highest sum of ranks. And when you play a card, you can either play it into your faction, your opponent's faction, as a goal in the center of the table, or to use its ability over here. And in this case, the Archivist ability is move 1 goal card to either faction. They aren't confident that they can win, but they are confident that they can extend the game. So they're going to discard this card to center discard. They're going to move this card to their faction, which means it's basically impossible for me to win right now. They're not going to win either, mind you, but it's impossible for me to win. So I'm going to go ahead, and honestly, that was a good decision on their hand because I had a 6. Had they played their 4, I would have played the 6 and taken the artifact. I'm not winning yet, but it is a step closer to winning. So I'm going to go ahead right now, and I'm looking at the board over here. I think I will go for the 6. I think I'm going to go, you know what? I think I'm going to go for the 5. I'm going to play this 5 over here like so. So I'm playing the 5. And then no one's winning right now. But because no one's winning, they maintain control of the artifact. We each draw another card, and then we continue the game. So now they have this other card over here. We're going to take a look at their hand, see what makes sense to play. They currently have, they have this Mechanist over here, the highest sum of ranks, the most cards ranked 4, the lowest Mechanist. That's, I mean, it's possible. Most Mechanics, that's, you know what? They're going to go with that. They're going to play the goal into the middle, the most Mechanist. Because, again, you can play a goal into the middle. Now, again, they know that right now that means they're winning this 1 point. And I could play a Mechanist over here, but it won't make me win. It would make me tie, and tying's not enough. But I'm going to look at my hand over here and see what I can do. We have most Archivists. We have most Mechanists. You know what I'm going to do? No, I don't know. I don't want them to win, so I have to stop that from happening. So I could go ahead with the, I could do that. I'm going to go ahead and play into the middle the most Alchemists. Okay, so now we're tying them. So now at the end of the round, we check, and they're getting 1 point. I'm getting 1 point. Yes, there are 2-point cards. Okay, that's going to be the process over there. So that works over there. Again, we draw a card, we rinse and repeat. Now, the goal is eventually someone has enough of a faction or enough goals that someone's going to take control of the artifact, and eventually someone will win. I've played this game. People do win. It doesn't just stalemate. Usually the first few rounds are some posturing back and forth. Eventually, it does result in some degree of stalemating, but as the game continues, especially because you're playing through your last cards, which in this game it's very easy to get down to your final cards. You have to play through your final card and no longer have any agency or choice, and that's often where wins can occur if they weren't achieved earlier. That's the basic idea of the game. First to 2 points wins the game. Okay, great. Then there's a solo mode. Now, I like the solo mode more. I'm going to tell you that right now. The base game for me is a 3.5 out of 5. I like it. I do enjoy the back and forth. The only reason it's not higher is because I do find that the back and forth generally feels a bit more obvious. Now, one of the things about Convergence over here is you can have multiple sets, and you can always mix together 3 different types. So I think we have the Mechanist, the Archivist, and the Alchemist in this set, but you can mix together any combination of them. It's fun, but again, there is a limit to how much agency or choice I really have. I often feel like it's doing the thing that makes the most sense, which doesn't feel that crazy. Again, going back to that dice example, if I can see the pattern if I can see the pattern of what makes sense significantly faster than I feel I should, that takes away from my sense of agency in the game, my sense of reward for playing it right. So I have fun while playing Convergence, but I don't necessarily know if I feel strongly that I'm really making optimal choices. The solo mode is different. The solo mode for me is a 4 out of 5 because the solo mode uses the same mechanics, but instead of feeling like it's a back and forth of who had the better hand, who got pushed into that end win just by the nature of whatever happened, the solo mode I feel has more interesting decisions. You see, the solo mode's going to give you 3 cards are going to come out here. I'm going to try to be brief about this because we still have one more game to go over here. I said this 6 small box games, but you don't have time for a 20-minute review, whatever it is. Anyways, you're going to put some goals down over here, and these represent the points you're trying to get to. Now, there's a little bit of a complicated system. Depending on what factions you're playing, you have a target score. So for this faction right now, we have a target score of 12. Depending on which different, again, alchemists, whatever it is, you'll have different scores ranging somewhere between 10 and 13, I'd say, but whatever, it's a range. Anyways, I have a target score of 12, which means I need to get 12 points. We're going to go ahead and give the enemy 5 cards, and they're going to play a card every round, and their card counts as a goal and as a card. So over here, we play this card, and they both have the goal of the lowest mechanist, and they have a 1, which is the lowest mechanist. There's nothing I can do about that, which means they're going to take the artifact from me. Now, if they take the artifact from me and win, and that's to be very clear, if they score a single point, they take the artifact from you. It doesn't matter if I score 5 points. If they score a single point, they take the artifact from you, which is that's not fun at all. And so to that end, right now I have to figure out how to get rid of that. The good news is my hand of 3 cards over here, there's often going to be an alchemist. Discard 1 card from either faction. So I'm going to go ahead and I get 2 plays a turn this time. It changes the game. I'm trying to get to 12 points. They can't get a single point along the way because they could get a single point because they'll take the artifact, but if they get a single point again, they will win. So you really have to be on your toes to stop them. Meanwhile, you're trying to go for the objectives on these goals because that will both earn you the card over here. So you're trying to get the objectives on these goals because that will earn you the card as an extra bonus ability, but also that's 3 points, and it's 1 and 2, so that's 6 of my 12 points over here. And then every round I have 2 plays, either to place cards into a common pool, which my enemy can also benefit from, or to use their ability, or to place my own faction. The different agency of having to play 2 cards around while trying to ensure that the enemy doesn't have a structure at all, while knowing you're going for 12 points, whatever the point structure you're going for, and being mindful of your time and energy along the way, means that for me, I feel that the decision space in the solo game is significantly higher and doesn't feel nearly as, back and forth. So they both use the same general mechanic. I just think that the solo game is a more interesting puzzle. I don't know if this is designed first and foremost as solo or not solo. I have no idea. But for me, this is a fun solo puzzle and an okay 2-player puzzle. That's going to be Convergence, a 3.5 on the 2-player, and a 4 to 5 on the solo. Let's go ahead and put this away over here. Like, I played this game, and I was like, okay, that was fun. I can move on from it. I don't need to collect the other decks. And then I played it with the solo mode, and I was like, now I kind of want the other decks. In any case, moving on to the last one, we have Pixie Party Picky Pixie. Another one from Elizabeth Hargrave over here, and this one is very simple, very to the point, and I told you as I go that the ratings go up, which means this is either a 3.5 or a 4. I'll save you some time as a 4. This is a 4 to 5 for me. And again, you have to take into account all aspects when you rate a game. For me, a button-shy game, a small wallet game that costs $10 that you can take with you and does things well, there are better games than this that I might rate lower because they demand more from you. More money, more time, more space, more everything. The nature of what this game does with its 18 cards and the little deductive puzzle it solves, like when I compare it to other games like Paint the Roses or, Search for Planet X, those are inherently better games in terms of what you get out of the experience, but they're not necessarily better in terms of the cost, the shelf space, the ratio of time investment to learn, to play. This gives you solid deduction in a very short and accessible time frame, and for that, it gets a boost to its rating, not based purely on the experience, but based on the sum of all its parts. So I just want to be clear about, how I rate things are taken into account. But it's a 4 to 5, but that is also biased by all the other factors. In this game, you're basically going to create a rule. So for example, I'm going to do this right now. We're going to play a game of Picky Pixie. I always want to say Party Pixie. I don't know why. We're going to play a game of Picky Pixie right now. I'm going to mentally create a rule following the basic normal rules, and I'll tell you some more about the game. So I'm looking at these cards over here, and I'm going to create the rule. Okay, I got it. Okay, perfect. I've created the rule. The rule is as follows. I need to put 1 on each side. Okay, so here we go. Here's the rule. We're going to go ahead and put these over here like so. Here's the cards, here's the rule. The rule, I'm not telling you what the rule is. What I am telling you is that whatever I'm doing fits the yes and the no side. So this side fits the rule, this side does not fit the rule. Now what is the rule? The rule is either at least less than, or even odd. So for example, a rule could be there are an odd amount of yellows. That could be the rule. It's not right now because both sides have the same amount of yellows, which means inherently it's not an odd amount of yellows. But it could be that there's an odd amount of whites. That could be the rule. Although it can't be. Maybe there's an even number of whites, because an even number of whites would mean this is the yes side, 0 counts as even, and this would be the no side, an odd amount of whites. Now there's 4 different colors, 4 different flower types, and then there's just the fact that there's different number of flowers and types. You could even have the rule there's at least 3 flowers could be the rule. Again, or at least or less than 3 flowers could be the rule. So you're trying to construct a rule, some basic formatting in play, and then from there, players try to submit their guesses, and they submit, okay, well, does this pattern over here fit the rule? And in my case, my rule, it does not fit the rule. There we go. There we go. Okay, great. No problem. So then we go ahead and submit another one. And does that fit the rule? Yes, in fact, it does fit the rule. So as you go through this, you're trying to create a cascading. I'm going to go through a few of these over here. I'm just going to have people submit their guesses. Does not fit the rule. We're going to have, let's go ahead and let's say they submit this one over here. So that does fit the rule. And you can go ahead, I'll do one more set of these and have you pause and submit your own guesses down below. Let's go ahead and have them submit this one over here. This does fit the rule. Okay, no problem. And then we're going to have them submit, this one over here. This does not fit the rule. So now they have all this information as far as what fits the rule, what doesn't. What do you think the rule is? You can pause and guess if you want, or you could just wait as I tell you. Once again, here are the numbers, here are the thingies. Oh, wait, sorry, I apologize. This does fit the rule, so don't pause yet. Don't pause yet. That does fit the rule. My bad. Okay, so we have all these over here. Pause, submit your guesses. The rule was that there are less than 2 purples. That was my rule. As you can see over here, these all have 2 purples at least. These all have less than 2 purples. That was my rule. That's the basic idea of the game. Now, when you're playing this with a bunch of players, it's all about who gets there first, and you get points based on how many cards are left in the deck, and then you play a few rounds until one player is the guesser each time, or the rule giver. If you're playing a 2 players, slightly different system, but the same basic net result of you're trying to play through who guesses the rule. Now, the rules can get more complicated. That's the basic mode. As you play more games, you can add to the intermediate mode, where you now have 2, you can now combine rules. You can create a rule that says there's an odd amount of whites, and there's at least 2 purples. That could be the rule. The rules get more complex as you go. If you're playing the full game, the rule could be absolutely anything. It could be less purples than whites. That could be what it is. It could be any form of verbiage you can do. You can't do something like I tilted the card 90 degrees, whatever it is. But I'm saying you get the idea. You can get more and more complicated with the rules as players get better at deducing the rule. So it's a very straightforward deduction game that has players submitting guesses to try to break or confirm their own biases and then make an educated guess from there. That's the basic idea. It's a fun little deductive game. It works so it's so small, so affordable. It's a good game in terms of what it gives you for what it demands of you in shelf, cost, time space, mental space, game time, all of those things. I do enjoy Pixie. That's basically it. Oh, so yeah, 4 to 5. I don't know if I told you that, but 4 to 5. I like this one. I did tell you that. I had a whole conversation with you about why. Anyways, that is basically it. These are your 6 Button Shy reviews. Antimony, I just don't feel a need to play ever again. Seasons of Rice, similarly, not as harsh, but just better games. Tussie Mussie, I've played it a bunch. I do enjoy it, but it doesn't give me that love that I get from some Button Shy games. Super Slopes over here starts getting a little better, a little in the right direction. I just think there are better games in that category. And then Converge, for me, the basic 2-player mode, a little too simple, a little too straightforward. Still fun, but a little too simple. But the solo mode is a fun puzzle. And then Pixie definitely has a space for me. The idea of a small small box deduction game that gives you that much potential in terms of, like, if I want to travel and I just want the opportunity to play a fun, quick game with 3 to 5 people. Actually, what's the player count in this? 2 to 5. 2 to 5 people over there. I should have known that. I said the 2-player mode. 2 to 5 people over here. The amount of space this takes up in my luggage or whatever, this is going to be a good travel game that gives me that potential as I go. Anyways, until next time, that is basically your 6 Button Shy reviews, 6 small Button Shy reviews, small box, small wallet size Button Shy reviews. And until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. Hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, I hope you have a good one.